Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Cabinet Subcommittee, Kindy Limited, our shareholder board. We're starting later than 5:30 because I was stuck in traffic. So my apologies to everybody. And I think that we're likely, as we go to the agenda, to have apologies from Councillor Tristan Osborne. So if there are no other apologies, then I'm going to move to the record of decisions on page 3 to 6. Our last meeting was in January. And obviously that was our inaugural meeting of the committee in this form. Lots happened since then. So if I just go through that quickly, we discussed the governance arrangements and we had confirmation that the company was going to be working on its revised business plan. And I think for the minutes, it is probably worth saying at this point that I meet Claire Burgess on a regular basis, and we've already had a discussion about the business plan. So we're trying to keep the lines of communication open and keeping each other informed about things along the way outside of the board meetings. So we noted the terms of reference, we approved the articles, we recommended that the adoption of articles of association and a memorandum of understanding, which we should be doing today. And that was the end of that inaugural meeting. Okay. Any questions or comments on that, anybody? No? Okay. I will move then to declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant interests, please. There are none. And so I'll move to the report by the Kindy Board of Directors. And I think it's also worth saying at this point that I came along to meet the non-executive directors and Claire as well. So we've got a new and refreshed approach to the way that Kindy has a relationship with the council. So if I pass over to you to lead on that, Claire. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to confirm that the MOU and the Articles of Association have been approved by the Kindy Board at the last board meeting. Okay, so we have our first paper today is to ask for agreement that the Kindy Subcommittee approves the appointment of the incumbent Board of Directors per the Articles of Association for 12 months, and that the Kindy Subcommittee approves the start of the recruitment process for 2 further non-exec directors to meet the requirements of the Articles of Association, and that the Kindy Subcommittee approve the proposed remuneration policy that sits alongside that. If you have a look through the paper that we've provided, you can see the current skills of the existing board. And you can see that we have been and completed a benchmarking exercise for remuneration for new non-exec directors. And we've also proposed a board skills matrix that we will use to highlight any gaps that we have within the board, and we will recruit around those gaps that we have found. We will recruit and look to diversify our board, and we'll be using the remuneration policy in our adverts to make sure that our remuneration is in line with that policy. We may recruit using a specialist recruitment agency. We will also advertise ourselves, and we would welcome shareholder involvement in that recruitment process.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Claire. The only thing that I was going to add, that I wonder if we could have an emphasis on, in the recruitment, on people with lived experience of Kindy services. I think that would be helpful.
We can add that to the process, that's fine.
Yeah, and otherwise, I think the introduction of the skills matrix and the kind of identification of gaps is really useful. You know, it isn't that the board lacks either diversity or experiences. In fact, I think it's quite well blended, but it is nice to know that there's been both a kind of more thoroughgoing risk assessment of the way that the board operates and the consequence of not operating, and also to try to sort of inject that diversity of skill into it. I think that's helpful. Any other comments, anybody? Okay, I will move on to the next item then. Which is the Kindy Strategic Plan. Are you leading on that, Claire, again?
I am, yes. We have presented part of the strategic plan. We do have an additional appendix to that plan that we have moved to private session, and we would welcome that any specific questions that are business sensitive are also asked in the closed session. We have prepared for you a 3-year business plan, which shows our growth, that shows our growth aspirations for the next 3 years. Kindy, as you all know, has been on a journey for the last few years. We are now proud to be the providers of monitoring CCTV and assistive technology. And we have worked over the last year to really look at the products that we're providing and our client base, and we believe that the business plan sets out very clearly the direction that we wish to take. Okay. Do you want to go through the plan section by section and ask for comments? I think that would be helpful. So we have our executive summary, which pulls together the whole plan. So rather than go through that section by section, we can move on and come back to the executive summary, if that's okay. So we have our vision statement, which is to be a leader in providing innovative and accessible assistive technology solutions, enhancing the quality of life for individuals with diverse abilities. To be the foremost provider of cutting-edge CCTV and monitoring solutions, ensuring public safety, security and effective law enforcement through advanced technology and strategic partnerships. It was very important for us in this vision statement to include the innovative and accessible assistive technology for all individuals with the diverse abilities, as we felt that previously perhaps we had been looking at the more elderly client base, whereas assistive technology has a place to play for everybody. Our mission is to develop and deliver cutting-edge assistive technologies and monitoring solutions that support organisations to monitor, respond and prevent security incidents, and that empower individuals to overcome challenges, fostering independence, inclusion and a sense of accomplishment, whilst also supporting our shareholder in reduction of adult social care financial pressures. There's obviously two very key things in there. One is to help support the reduction of adult social care financial pressures by the utilisation of assistive technology, and also to ensure that we're empowering individuals to be as independent as possible. Our core values, we spent some time looking at these, and these will evolve. However, we have started with innovation, accessibility, empathy and integrity, as we felt they were the 4 values that best described our organisation. Again, without going through every part of the ensuring diversity inclusion, it was very important for us as an organisation to make sure that we are accessible to all. We have started some work with community groups to ensure that we're accessing people who need our support, who may not come to us directly, and we plan to increase our work within the community. We're also working to make sure that all of our information is accessible to everybody. We're looking to work with local health providers and education providers to make sure, again, that all of our information is reaching the right people at the right time. And we will look to improve and increase our technology and innovation solutions in line with user feedback, because it's quite important for us that we have that co-production from people who actually use the products and who actually will benefit from what we do. We then move on to our strategic decisions and initiatives, and again, without reading through every line to you, you can see that with the non-Medway business, there are existing sectors that we're supporting that we can increase and look to grow that part of our business. We're also looking at potential acquisitional opportunities and new services that complement what we already provide. As I briefly mentioned, we are also looking to solicit feedback from users and most importantly, utilise co-production, incorporating it into product improvements and increasing our product range from the traditional reactive products to making sure that we're working more proactively and preventatively to ensure people don't reach the stage of needing that additional help that historically we would have supported. We're looking to invest in product assessment and impact. It's really important that we can see the impact of the positive impact of the work that we're doing. And looking at changing our systems and our processes and our products so that they're all interoperable with each other so that we're not tied to specific product ranges or providers. And insisting in research and development to make sure that we're at the forefront of technology. So our goal and objective for the short term is to increase our market share by 15%, launch a minimum of 4 new assistive technology products, enhance customer support services, enhance systems and increase skills, ensure our analogue to digital changeover is completed within the required timeframes, and ensure our products are interoperable. Our medium term is to expand into additional complementary markets, establish more strategic partnerships with healthcare providers and public sector organisations, achieve 20% revenue growth, and also look at developing and implementing more AI-driven services for proactive monitoring. Our long-term goal is to pioneer breakthrough technologies, contribute to policy development for accessibility standards and public safety, and above all, become a recognised brand and a trusted advisor.
Just stop you there before we go to the financial section, because I would like to invite comments from other people. But from my point of view, I welcome the engagement with the council's own objectives. That's very helpful. And I think I'm also want to mention and record the commitment that Kindy has shown to attending events. Today I was at Carers First's annual event. That's not the first by any means event that I've seen the team at, and getting a good response, being very engaging and open with potential users about the technology that's available. And I think when we had the conference about assistive technology down in Ashford, it was very clear that Kindy were becoming a modern market leader. So I think that's a tribute to the work that you've done, particularly Claire, to the way that you've worked in partnership with Jackie. I think that has, that is now very evident in a way that it wasn't before, and to the board themselves for being open and proactive about things. And I think that really shows a step change that was much needed and moves Kindy away from the past problems and difficulties, because you're very much under the public eye and under our eye. So I think that's a really useful position to be in as we move to up our game with the use of assistive technology. And I think there's absolutely definitely a role for Kindy in working with our teams to ensure, and as we look to the CQC inspection, it'll be important to emphasise the work that you've been doing and the work that we plan to do together. So I'm pleased about that. I also think that your expansion goals are realistic, because the market is expanding. There's no doubt about that. You'll come on to say a bit more about that in the plan, but I think 15% is a realistic and achievable target over time. Any other comments from anyone else before we move to the finance section? Simon, and then Bhupinder.
Yeah, thank you very much for all the work that's gone into this. Obviously, I'm fairly new to the organisation and getting my head around all the things that you do. I've just got a couple of questions in relation to the report so far. One of the things I picked up on early in your sort of the vision side of it is about the strategic partnerships. But then going through the report, it'd be good to see who those partners are. and what the key ones are. Obviously, Medway Council being the key partner that we work together on as much as we can, but I'm sure you've got plenty more, and it'd be good to see who those people are and relationships there. Not in any kind of fine detail, but certainly on that. I love the idea of co-production. It's something that we're very strong on, so that's really good to see that early on as well. Just within the diversity section, there's no mention of gender diversity, which I think needs to be in there as well, which would be good to see. And just on another point, sort of more sort of encompassing is the issue around climate. And I noticed that in the report, the climate section says there is no climate implications. Well, there's tons actually. So I'd like to see some more in relation to that. And certainly our climate team, the climate team that we've got in the council, would be more than happy to work with you to identify issues and pull those out. But that's my initial look at it there. Thank you very much, Teresa.
And Jackie, then Phil.
Thank you, Councillor Moran. I was just looking at the recommendations on the report, which just trying to find the page. It's a supplementary agenda at the front. So there's three recommendations there. Firstly, in relation to the strategic plan and agreeing that, which you've already debated and discussed. The second is in relation to the proposed restructure, which is documented in Appendix 2. And it was that particular document that I wanted to touch on. I'm not sure whether we've reached that point or you wanted to go to that later. So I'm more than happy to hold on to my comments or come to that later.
Be helpful to go to that later, please, Bhupinder, because
Okay, we'll do
it's
so.
got a relationship with finance.
Okay, I'll hold on that then. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to reiterate, the relationship is definitely improved. We've got a very good working relationship with adult social care now. One of the things that Claire and I have talked about, and I think is captured in the plan, is about how we expand that across the council. There's other departments that definitely I think Kindy could work with. One of the things I do think we need to think really strongly about, and it is touched on in the plan, is it's an automatic assumption that assistive technology will be used for older people, but how do we expand that and broaden that out for people who are younger with a disability, and thinking about some of those things around sensitivities, you know, flashing lights and so on and so forth. So when we're doing that work that's more broad, we need to think about that from across the age range, and also how we move into children's services as well from a preventative approach. And I'd also like to think about the prevention strategy that's being developed for Medway Council at the moment. So that's been looked at from a public health point of view. I'm looking at it from an adult social care point of view, but I think we need to think about how do we bring the assistive tech part in to make that all encompassing that prevention strategy.
If I just come back on that, Jackie, before I come to Phil, that is absolutely critical, because it's our intention to make prevention everybody's business. And so, you know, we should see that strand running right across the council. It shouldn't be left either to adult social care or public health alone. And I think particularly the links into children's services with a view to strengthening transition is really important. So any kind of reflections within the plan that can pick those things up, I think, would be helpful, because as much as possible, we want the plans and strategies that we've got to relate to one another so that none of them die on the shelf. Phil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'd just like to understand a little bit more about the short-term goals, because I recognise them all from the discussions that we've had when I've attended your board meetings. But the first bullet there is quite explicit around increasing the market share by 15%. And I suppose I want to understand how much the company understands about the size of the market and what its current market share is. That's the first part. And then you've referenced launching a minimum of 4 new assistive technology products. Presumably you've got a fair idea of what those 4 products are, given that you're going to be launching them fairly soon.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about the 4 products outside of a public meeting. And with regards to the market share, the whole market is growing rapidly, as you can imagine. The last valuation was for the UK economy was £1 billion. We are using our figures to estimate that Medway's market share is around 1% of that share. The demographic shift in Medway and Swale is changing. and we are looking at needing to support more people. So we're looking at that growth for the organisation coming from different areas and not just one specific area. Again, I'm happy to discuss those in more detail outside of a public session.
And I think, Phil, I do support that approach because it's been clear when we've attended events that competition is high. And so that there is a need to, if you like, be prudent about the way that we launch things. Yeah. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so Claire, I'll ask you to move on to the finance part, please.
So for the open session, we have kept it to the very high level, and we are showing you our actual figures for 22-23, our actual figures for 23-24, and our forecast for the next 3 years, which reflects the growth that we discussed earlier. We have in our plan quite a high level of investment in both marketing and training, and again, I'm happy to go into more detail around those in a closed session. But you can see that by the end of 26-27 that we are forecasted to grow from a sales of 2.6 million to sales of 3.5 million, with our net profit percentage increasing to 22% from our current forecast of 10%. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. In the additional pack, there is more detail in regards to the financials, which, as I said, I'm happy to discuss further in the closed session. We then move on in our plan to the current market, which we touched on earlier. So Medway is in the top 40% most densely populated local authority area, and 46,000 of those are older people, 65 plus, and we are expecting that population to grow. Health and care has become much more personalised through the deployment of patient-specific devices and person-generated data. COVID has really pushed, I believe, on the increase of assistive technology and how that can support people. We're very keen as an organisation to make sure that we're offering that personalised support so that we're not just offering a one-size-fits-all, so that we're looking at where different health needs need different technologies and where specific people need, and we've worked very closely with Jackie so far on making sure that we're offering that personalised support. It's increasingly common for care to be provided in a homely community setting. I think everybody agrees that in most cases home is best, and so the longer that we can encourage people and ensure that they remain independent at home for as long as possible, and assistive technology absolutely has its place to play in that. We have completed our PESL. Again, I won't go through that in detail, but if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to go through that. But that really sets out, as an organisation, what our political, social, economic, technology, environmental and legal challenges and opportunities are. Our target market, as we went through earlier, so we have clearly need to start looking at people with diverse needs across all ages and ranges, lone working organisations, public sector organisations, private sector organisations, health and social care providers, and potentially acquisitional opportunities. We also recognise that our marketing and branding needs some refreshment and needs some work. We need to look at our website and improve the website that we currently have, develop a virtual showcase, house showcase in Kindy, which actually is in its final stages, and really create our marketing roadmap to support our business plan.
Can just stop you there before we move to the final section and the closed session. I think that there is a need to be careful on acquisitions, and perhaps we'll talk a bit more about that in the closed session. But I think the rebranding is really critical, and there's a need to frame that in a modern context, isn't there? So can I just ask you a little bit more about the work that's been going on to try to achieve that? Because I think, you know, some of the phraseology that we use, I like the slogan, life is for living, not worrying. That's helpful. But I think some of the other phraseology is geared towards a kind of cared for reference as opposed to a sort of empowered, more independent type. So I can just hear a little bit about the way that you've been being advised and trying to increase the market. You know, the little kind of arm around the heart logo, actually I like that too. I think that's quite recognisable and quite relatable. But I think in terms of the narrative, it's difficult, and I accept that. It's difficult to have a positive narrative about a situation that most people hope that they won't be in. But nevertheless, it's about the sort of security and protection that we can offer as two organisations working together. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
So the branding that we're currently using is branding that was created a number of years ago. So the piece of work and the project to re-look at the branding hasn't yet started. I have an initial meeting around that next week, but I'm happy to report back at our next meeting as to how that is going. But everything that we're currently using is from a previous exercise, so it is a brand new exercise that we're about to start. But we completely agree that historically, again, it's similar to our products. Historically, we've been very reactive rather than preventative, and we need to look at the same with our marketing to make sure that it has a positive message and that assistive technology isn't frightening, and that it can be very supportive. But we are, as I said, we're happy to report back on how that goes in the next meeting.
Thank you, and I think there is a need to really explore and exploit digital channels, isn't there? I'm not saying, you know, that you can have a sort of TikTok video, but there is a midway, I think, that can engage people in a way they're used to being engaged with, that feels very personalised. So that sort of market segmentation for the different types of people that you'll be trying to reach, I think, is going to be important because, as I say, lots of the language is not familiar to most people, and you are now very firmly, I think, part of the council's front-facing image, and that's important to us as well.
Can I just mention as well that we are looking to work very closely with the digital team at Mid-Kent College as well, and so that they have some input within their work experience around supporting us with our digital marketing as well.
That's great, and obviously we've got the exciting assistive technology training facility coming on stream, so that will help. Simon, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just a question I was going to hold for the AOB, actually, because I thought it was, as you brought up the branding and talking about the name Kindy. Can you just tell me where that comes from and why? Because it's an unusual word, and I don't know its roots. So
I can tell you what it means. The brand of Kindy was decided before my time. So Kindy is an Old Norse word that means kind, and I also believe that it means valley. And because we were based in Medway Valley, the two aligned, and that's where Kindy came from. So we move to our next steps, and again, I won't read it all, but it clearly sets out where we're looking at our distribution and sales, how important our regulatory compliance is, how we're going to look at our customer support and continuous improvement, and that will be around feedback from our client base and from our stakeholders. Obviously, making sure that our financial management is exactly where it needs to be, looking at diversifying our revenue streams, while making sure that we're managing costs efficiently while ensuring competitive pricing. We also need to keep an eye on our risks and dependencies. Again, I won't go through those individually. And possibly one of the most important things for me is our talent development, to make sure that we're attracting and retaining good talent, and that we are making sure that everybody has the skills that they need to deliver what they need to deliver for our organisation. To do that, we're looking at regular skills gap analysis, robust training plans for everybody, and making sure that we're instilling a commercial mindset across the organisation. We have a really good team who genuinely care about the service that we deliver, and it's really important for me that we're investing in those people to make sure that they can deliver the best possible service that they can.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just going back to the next steps, the first part of that, I'm trying to separate out what next steps are from actual sort of good practice. And I think possibly it needs to be like maybe drawn out. Your core values are very clear and stuff like that. So, and a lot of the initial sort of next steps about providing exceptional customer support is a core value. And so it's in the next steps part, but it's not really a next step. It's already should be happening. I'm sure it is. And from what I hear, it is happening. And there's one or two others in that sort of area there where you've clearly got things like stay updated on international accessibility standards. That's a kind of, you know, something that you're going to be doing. It's not a next step. So it'd be nice to see a bit more distinction between what you mean by next step. And one that's really strong, and you've brought it out a couple of times, is that connection with our training organisations, Mid-Kent College in particular, but also the universities. That's a really important partnership. The technology that they're working with is quite exceptional, and connecting up with what their trainees are coming through and then saying, well, look, we'll give you some apprenticeships or we'll provide some jobs because that's really a good next step. That's the kind of thing. So it would just be nice to see the distinction between sort of these core business principles about good standards, if you like, and actually what the next steps are. So I'm just a point there. Thank you.
I'll pop that in, Councillor Curry, and actually what we haven't put in here, and we probably should do, is we're working very closely with the further education colleges on their curriculum development for assistive technology and creating a work experience programme for their students, so we'll make sure that that's also added in.
And just sort of adding to that, Simon, for your interest, the colleges group have been really successful in getting accreditation for assistive technology qualifications, which is a difficult thing to do, and I think that is a considerable achievement actually, and it should yield over time, you know, a new population of skills in assistive technology design and production and co-production. So that's an element that, as someone who knows what it's like trying to get an awarding body to evaluate and accredit anything, that is a very good piece of work, and Claire has definitely been involved in that. So that's something I think for Medway and Kent colleges to be pretty proud of. And actually, it's, I think, really nice for young people who are in the, you know, we're trying to encourage into the caring industry to know that they've got different directions to go into. So,
just quickly, if I can,
yeah.
Just on that point, I mean, one of the fundamental things, and Teresa will knows this, but is about data, and I'm obsessed with how much data can we collect in the right areas. So within our health provision, the Health Determinants Board is actually there to collect data and do research into it. Similarly with climate work that we're doing, data is king, if you like, because we've got to make sure that what we're doing is effective. And again, in this area, it's so important. So that again ties us into those universities and things. Thank you.
Yeah, and for the avoidance of doubt, I mean, Claire's been attending the Health and Wellbeing Board and the Health Determinants Research Collaboration, which I think there's a strong possibility of a research strand being identified, isn't there? So that's really good. You know, that accountability and impactfulness is exactly where we want to be. To you, Claire.
Okay, and then we have our monitoring and evaluation, so regularly assessing our KPIs and adjusting strategies based on market trends and customer feedback. And that very much is reliant on data, actually. And I've spent today interviewing for somebody who will support us with analysing that data. We are and have invested into a new alarm receiving centre to enable future proofing, particularly around the analogue to digital changeover. And looking at our other systems and financial systems to allow integration into our delivery platform so that all of our systems are talking to each other to make sure that they're most efficient and the data that we're getting out is robust data. And we've got some key milestones which we're still working on and is still evolving, but without going through all of those in detail, you can see where our key projects are.
I'm just a little bit nervous about mobilising the finance system? Because I sort of hope that you've already got one.
We are in the process of changing our finance system, which is why the mobilisation. So we will amend that to reflect that it is a change in finance system.
Moving to a new platform?
We are.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
thank you. It's the end of the public part of the meeting. Any questions or comments before we move into closed session? No? Okay. So I'm going to ask that any members of the press or public leave the chamber, and I think that that has been achieved.